Are you thinking about making the move to Northern Virginia in 2025? Well, guess what? You're in the right spot. Because moving here isn't as simple as finding the perfect home. There's gonna be some unique rules that you must know so you can settle in and live like a local. So in this week's video, I'll break it all down with the top 10 rules that you must know before moving to Northern Virginia. And these rules will hands down make your relocation as easy and smooth as possible. So you're not gonna wanna miss this, so sit back, relax, because we're getting started right now. Boom! Hey everybody, it's David, your favorite realtor, and welcome back to another video. Let's get the video started right now with the first rule that you must know about before moving to Northern Virginia with: be prepared for the high cost of living. So Northern Virginia is one of the most expensive areas to live in the entire country, and this is hands down gonna be the biggest challenge for most people relocating to the area. And the biggest factor to our high cost of living is our high cost of housing. So a very normal thing to do is, if you're moving to Northern Virginia, is you're probably sitting at a computer right now on Zillow looking at homes for sale in Northern Virginia. And while you're doing that, you're absolutely gonna get sticker shock. And myself, I personally look at homes all day, every day, and I still get sticker shock. So let's look at the numbers. The 2024 median sales price of a home in Northern Virginia comes out to $691,000. Now let's compare that to the country as a whole. According to Redfin, the median sales price of a home in the US comes out to $427,000. Get ready for this. So housing in Northern Virginia is 61% more expensive compared to the country as a whole. When I first saw this number, I initially did not believe it. I literally triple checked my numbers. Also, you don't get much relief when it comes to rentals, as the average rental price of a 3+ bedroom home in Northern Virginia comes out to $3,300 per month. Now, chances are you're relocating to Northern Virginia for a brand new career opportunity, and there's a high probability that's coming with a nice pay increase as well. So before you make the plunge and move here, you gotta make sure the numbers work out. Because the last thing you want is to move here, and yes, you're making more money, but your purchasing power is less than what you're leaving behind. If you want to get a true perspective of our high cost of living, check out a video I did earlier this year where I share with you my personal cost of living expenses. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll leave a link to that video in the description. So yes, when you move into Northern Virginia, you must be prepared for a high cost of living. And if you can get past this, the rest of the rules are way easier. Now the next rule is, before you move to Northern Virginia, you must come here on a scouting trip. This is a rule you cannot break, and hands down is my #1 tip to folks who are relocating to Northern Virginia, especially if you're not familiar with the area. Now, minimum, you want to come for a long weekend, but the longer the better. And when you're in town, you're going to drive through the area, you're going to go through towns and neighborhoods that you've been eyeing. You can check out the schools, look at where the closest town centers are, and where your new office is going to be located. And when you're in town, try to interact with as many people as possible. For example, let's say you go out to a restaurant, ask the waiter or the manager what they think about living in the area. Because you will learn a lot about this area by talking to people who actually live in this area. And all of this will really help you pinpoint areas you like, and more importantly, areas you don't like. So many times I've had clients interested in a specific area, but when they came and saw it in person, they realized it was not a good fit for them. So immediately they shifted their focus to other parts of Northern Virginia. Now, you're not gonna learn everything about Northern Virginia in one weekend, but you're gonna learn way more about the area during your scouting trip than months and months of research online. Because the last thing you wanna do is move here without coming here in advance and realizing Northern Virginia just isn't for you at all. You wanna determine this before moving here, not after. So this is not an optional rule. This is a must. Come here for a scouting trip. Now, as much as I love making YouTube videos about living right here in Northern Virginia, where I love even more is helping folks just like you relocate to the area. So if you're even thinking about moving to Northern Virginia, reach out to me, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. Just know I got your back when you're moving to Northern Virginia. Now the next rule is, don't fixate on just one area. So Northern Virginia, it is a massive area. In fact, it's actually bigger than the whole state of Rhode Island. And there's gonna be a lot of different areas that are fantastic places to live in. So when most people reach out to me about relocating to the area, some will have a few neighborhoods and towns in mind. Some people have certain schools that they really want their kids to attend. But the most common thing I hear is people want to live within a 30-minute radius from their office. Now, these are all great ways to start narrowing down where to live. But you don't want to fixate just on one certain area while ignoring the rest of the region. And the main reason is you could be leaving a much better option on the table, and maybe even a more affordable option. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people reach out to me saying, I want to live within 15 to 30 minutes of X. It could be their office, it could be their kid's private school. But a lot of times those areas don't fit their needs and budget. In these scenarios, I always recommend expanding your radius from 30-minute commute to a 45-minute commute, because this will open a floodgate of better options, and most people end up going with the new area compared to the original area they were fixated on. So if you're moving to Northern Virginia, be open to other areas, because at the very least, more options is better than less options. Now, the next rule that you must know about before moving to Northern Virginia is you must come to terms with the traffic. So Northern Virginia is a great place to live, but the traffic is absolutely terrible. And according to usnews.com, the DC Metro has the 8th worst traffic in the entire nation. And a good rule of thumb is, as you get closer to Washington, D.C., the worse the traffic gets, especially on major highways like 66, 495, and 95. And trust me, getting on those highways during rush hour, you can literally feel like you're stuck in a parking lot. Now here's a real world example. My wife and I, we live in Ashburn, but her office is in Washington, D.C., so her commute to and from work takes anywhere from 60 minutes on a good day up to 90 minutes on a bad day. Now the good news is she only has to make that commute once, maybe twice a week max, so it's definitely doable. But if you have to commute into work 5 days a week during peak rush hour, you literally may start to go crazy and start questioning your sanity. Now, depending on where you live and work, you may have the option of taking the Metro to and from work, and the Metro features 98 stations all throughout Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland. Now, you're not going to save time at all. It'll probably take you a little longer compared to driving, but you will save the aggravation of sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, and you can get some work done while on the train. So yes, traffic in Northern Virginia, it is not ideal, and we just have to come to terms with it, but think of it as the price of admission for living in such a great area. Now, the next rule is you must have airplane noise tolerance. So in our region, we have two major airports. First, we have Reagan National, and then we have Dulles International Airport. And as you can imagine, it's great having two airport options at your disposal, but it comes at a price. A lot of areas in Northern Virginia, you will absolutely hear airplane noise. Now, some areas, the airplane noise isn't too noticeable, but other areas, the noise is extremely noticeable, and I happen to live in one of those extremely noticeable areas. So I live 10 miles away from Dulles International Airport, and on a daily basis, I absolutely hear airplane noise. Now, inside of my home with the windows closed, I don't really notice the airplane noise. And if I do, it's very minor. But if I go outside, it's a completely different story. Within 7 minutes, I'm gonna hear airplane noise that sounds just like this. As someone who lives in one of the worst areas for airplane noise, I personally don't think it's that bad. At worst, it's a small inconvenience. So yes, depending on where you end up living, you must be prepared for airplane noise, but I don't think this should be a deal breaker whatsoever. Now, the next rule is be open to townhomes. So I would say about 99% of people who reach out to me always say they prefer a single family home over a townhouse, especially if they're relocating from areas of the country where townhomes aren't as common, or maybe are in less than desirable neighborhoods. In fact, 38% of all the homes in Northern Virginia are going to be townhomes. Now, there's going to be many different style of townhomes in our region, including older and smaller townhomes, which are perfect for first-time home buyers, townhouse style condos, which tend to be a lot newer and affordable. Then you have townhomes that actually feel just like a single family home from the inside. And then you have stunning luxury townhomes, with some of these having elevators and rooftop terraces. Not to mention, a lot of these townhomes, they're gonna be in A+ and highly desirable neighborhoods. Now, hands down, the biggest pro of townhomes is the affordability. So let's look at the numbers. The median sales price of a townhouse in Northern Virginia comes out to $601,000. Now let's compare that to single family homes, where the median sales price of a single family home comes out to $899,000. So the average townhouse is gonna be 33% less expensive compared to the average single family home. So you will get a lot more value choosing a townhouse over a single family home. Now, with that being said, if your budget's well above $1 million, forget the townhouse, go for that single family home. But if your budget's well under $1 million, I would say absolutely be open to townhomes. Now the next rule is embrace the cultural diversity. So Northern Virginia is going to be one of the most diverse regions in the United States in terms of ethnicity and culture. Now this diversity comes from many factors, including close proximity to Washington, D.C., a strong job market, and an overall high quality of life, which makes this region a highly desirable place to live. So naturally, we're going to attract many people from all over the world to our region. Now, some areas in Northern Virginia will be way more diverse than other areas. And just like most metropolitan cities, the closer you get to DC, the more diverse the communities get, especially when you compare it to the rural parts of the area. So some of the pros of embracing the diversity is you get a broader worldview with exposure to different perspectives, traditions, and lifestyles. Then you're gonna have many cuisine options from all around the world that you will find here in Northern Virginia and DC, which is why we have some of the best restaurants in the country. So when you move to Northern Virginia, you will definitely learn to embrace and appreciate the cultural diversity. Now the next rule is you must be prepared for the fast-paced and competitive lifestyle. So Northern Virginia, it is not a blue-collar town whatsoever. It's a very affluent and career-driven area, which can be a huge difference from people coming from more quiet and laid-back areas. So most people you meet in Northern Virginia, they can be right in the middle of the rat race, where they're constantly striving for more success, more money, the next big promotion, or higher status, which can make this region a very competitive and cutthroat environment. You're also going to see a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, where so many people are always trying to outdo their neighbor, friend, or colleague. Like, I just bought a house. Well, I'm going to buy a bigger house. I just bought a brand new car. Well, I'm going to buy a more expensive car. My kid just got into UVA. Well, my kid just got into Stanford. Things like that are very common in this area. So a lot of people in this region, they feel very entitled because of their career success. So moving here can be a huge adjustment, especially if you're coming from a slower paced lifestyle. In fact, when I moved to Northern Virginia back in the year 2000 from Jacksonville, Florida, which is way more laid back compared to this area, it took me years to get adjusted to this new lifestyle. This is also one of the top reasons why people who actually relocate here end up leaving, because they just couldn't fit into the new way of living. So yes, if you move into Northern Virginia, you must be prepared for a fast-paced and competitive lifestyle. Now the next rule is, and this is everybody's favorite, just kidding, is you have to accept that Virginia has a car tax. So what is this car tax all about? Well, in Virginia, we have sales tax, we have real estate taxes, just like the rest of the country, but we also have a personal property tax. This is gonna be a tax levied on the ownership of personal property such as cars, motorcycles, trucks, boats, campers, trailers, and planes. And since most people don't have planes and boats, but everybody has a car, that's why it's referred to as the car tax. So 24 other states actually have a personal property tax, but you may not know this, Virginia has the highest car tax in the nation. So the tax rate is not gonna be the same for all of Virginia, and it varies by county, town, or city. And on average, the rates go anywhere from $3.50 to $5 per $100 of assessed value. In the county I personally live in, which is Loudoun County, the personal property tax rate is $4.15 per $100 of assessed value. Now let me share with you what I just paid for my 2024 car tax bill, and it will absolutely shock you. So my household has two cars. I have a 2024 BMW X5, and we also have a 2021 Tesla Model 3. So my combined 2024 car tax bill came out to $3,258. And that one hurt big time. There's a million other things I'd rather spend $3,000 on. I'd rather go on vacation. I'd rather invest that money. I'd rather save that money. I'd rather blow that money in anything else besides a car tax. Now, a common question I get about the car tax is, David, do you have to pay the car tax on leased vehicles? Well, the answer is absolutely. So there's really no way around the car tax, so it's something we just have to learn to accept. Now, the next rule is you have to learn to accept the extreme fluctuations of weather. So Northern Virginia, it definitely does not have the best weather in the country, but it also does not have the worst, kind of lands somewhere in the middle. Now the biggest complaint about weather in Northern Virginia is it can fluctuate very quickly. For example, I've seen it be 68 degrees one day and the next day we get 5 inches of snow. I've seen it rain non-stop for 15 straight days. Then I've also seen it not rain at all for 21 straight days. Or my personal favorite, it is 80 degrees today, feels like summer, and the next day is 30 degrees, which feels like winter. So living in Northern Virginia, you will experience all 4 seasons. Now summers can be absolutely brutal, especially during July when it's 95 degrees and humid, and not to mention all the bugs you're gonna find right here in the summertime. Then winters, especially during January and February, can be extremely cold and bitter. Now, we don't get as much snow as you used to, but we're still prone to a blizzard from time to time. Now, springtime is going to be very beautiful, but we will get a lot of rain, huge temperature fluctuations, and then my personal favorite, extreme levels of pollen. And I'll give you a word of advice if you're moving to Northern Virginia. Do not buy a black car, because in April and May, you won't have a black car anymore. It'll be a yellow car. Now, fall weather is actually really nice. It's not gonna be too hot, not gonna be too cold. Only downside is fall is over very quickly. There's a funny meme I want to share with you. This meme emphasizes our all over the place weather, showing that we don't have 4 seasons of weather. Virginia actually has 12 seasons of weather. So right now we're probably in between second summer and actual fall, but every time I see this graphic, I always get a chuckle because it's so true. So yes, weather can be all over the place here in Northern Virginia, but like I said earlier, we don't have the best weather, but we definitely don't have the worst weather. But the crazy weather overall is just something we have to learn to accept. And if you want to continue your research on what it's like living in Northern Virginia, check out this video right here. I go over the pros and cons of living in Fairfax County. You're not going to want to miss it. And I'll see you on the next video.